What if one shot could ignite a revolution, and nobody knew who fired it? Picture this. It's 1775, and the American colonies are a tinderbox ready to burst. British redcoats, with their crisp uniforms and rigid orders, face off against scrappy colonists who've had enough of being pushed around. General Thomas Gage, holed up in Boston, thinks he's got a foolproof plan to squash the rebellion before it spreads. But in just a few hours, his secrets are betrayed, his soldiers are ambushed, and a single hill becomes the stage for a battle that changes everything. This isn't just history, it's a story of defiance, chaos, and a fight that nobody saw coming. Let's dive into the spark that lit the American Revolution. The Midnight Ride's secret betrayal. How did a secret British plan leak in hours? On the night of April 18, 1775, General Thomas Gage thought he had the upper hand. He gathered his top officers in Boston and revealed a bold strike. 700 of his best troops, crack light infantry and grenadiers, would slip across the Mystic River under cover of darkness, march 17 miles to Concord, and destroy the colonists' weapons. The goal? Cripple the rebellion before it could grow. But Gage didn't count on the Sons of Liberty, a network of patriot spies with eyes everywhere. Word of his plan reached Dr. Joseph Warren, a Boston doctor with a rebel's heart who didn't waste a second. He sent Paul Revere and William Dawes galloping into the night to sound the alarm. Revere rode across the Mystic, dodging British patrols, while Dawes sneaked out through Boston's narrow neck. They linked up near Cambridge, racing to Lexington to warn militia leaders and hide key figures like Samuel Adams and John Hancock. The ride was pure chaos. Revere got nabbed by a British roadblock, Dawes took a tumble off his horse, and only a local, Dr. Samuel Prescott, made it to Concord by 3 a.m. By then, militia across Massachusetts were already grabbing their muskets. Gage's secret was out, and the colonists were ready. But the real chaos was just beginning. The shot that shook the world, one shot, changed history. But who pulled the trigger? By dawn on April 19, 1775, the sleepy village of Lexington was a powder keg. 80 colonial militiamen, ordinary men with muskets, stood on the village green, eyeing the approaching British vanguard. They weren't blocking the road, just holding their ground, tense and ready. The redcoats, 700 strong, could have marched straight past to Concord. Instead, they wheeled onto the green, maybe spooked by the thought of a flank attack. A British officer bellowed for the militia to scatter. Silence hung heavy. Then a single shot cracked the air. Was it a nervous colonist's misfire? A jumpy redcoat? Some even whisper it was a hidden provocateur, itching to spark a fight. Nobody knows, and that mystery still fuels debates today. What's certain is the chaos that followed. The British unleashed a volley, then charged with bayonets. 8 militiamen dropped, their blood soaking the grass as the rest fled. That shot, later dubbed the shot heard round the world, wasn't just a spark. It was a signal that the colonies were done backing down. Lexington was just the start, and Concord would fan the flames. Concord's hidden victory. Why did the British march into a trap? By the time the redcoats trudged into Concord at dawn on April 19, 1775, their mission was already falling apart. Thanks to Dr. Samuel Prescott's midnight warning, the colonists had worked fast, hiding nearly all their weapons and supplies. All the British found were a few dusty musket balls and 3 broken cannons too heavy to haul away. Around 250 militiamen, watching from across the North Bridge, let the redcoats search the empty town. But when smoke rose from burning gun carriages, the militia thought Concord was being torched. That was their line in the sand. They marched forward, 400 strong by now, facing a small British unit holding the bridge. Another tense standoff, then a shot, likely from the British side, shattered the silence. The redcoats fired a ragged volley without orders. But this time, the militia fired back. British officers fell, their men panicked, and the unit broke, fleeing toward a relief column. By noon, the British were retreating to Boston, but the countryside was buzzing. Nearly 2,000 furious militiamen swarmed from every direction, ambushing the redcoats from behind trees, fences, and walls. The British lost nearly 300 men that day, limping back to Boston in humiliation. The colonists didn't just hold their ground, they turned the tables. But Gage wasn't done yet. His next move would be his biggest mistake. Gage's desperate gamble. Was General Gage secretly rooting for the colonists? That's what some folks are buzzing about online today. After the disaster at Concord on April 19th, 1775, General Thomas Gage was in a tough spot. His plan to disarm the rebels had backfired spectacularly, leaving nearly 300 of his men dead or wounded. Most commanders would have doubled down, declared martial law, rounded up rebel leaders, shut down their newspapers. Not Gage. He went soft, offering Bostonians safe passage out of the city if they handed over their weapons. He let opposition papers keep printing and didn't touch the rebel leaders he could have easily grabbed. Some ex-posts call him a traitor in red, whispering that he secretly sympathized with the colonists. Others argue he was just terrified of sparking more violence. Either way, Gage was scrambling. He started fortifying Boston's defenses, piling up earthworks on the city's neck, and sent urgent calls to London for more troops. Lucky for him, 4,500 soldiers were already on their way, led by Generals William Howe, John Burgoyne, and George Clinton. But here's where it gets juicy. Rumors swirled that Howe didn't even want the gig. Some say he despised Prime Minister Lord North's hardline policies, but took the job out of loyalty to King George III. Gage's hesitation bought the colonists precious time, and they were about to pull off a stunt that would change everything. Ticonderoga's rebel heist. How did a ragtag militia steal an entire fort? While General Gage was licking his wounds in Boston, a bold plan was brewing in the wilds of New York. Fort Ticonderoga, a British stronghold packed with cannons and gunpowder, was barely guarded, a sitting duck. Enter Benedict Arnold, a fiery Connecticut captain with a chip on his shoulder, and Ethan Allen, the rough and ready leader of the Green Mountain Boys. Arnold, hearing the fort was ripe for the taking, pitched the idea to Massachusetts and got himself promoted to colonel. But when he reached the New Hampshire grants in early May 1775, he found Allen and his crew already gearing up to strike. The two locked horns over who'd call the shots. Arnold waved his official papers, but Allen, who answered to no one, just smirked. With British reinforcements closing in, they didn't have time to bicker. On May 10th at 1:30 a.m., they crossed Lake Champlain with too few boats to carry all their men. No matter, the lone sentry at Ticonderoga fled at the sight of them, and the fort fell without a single shot. Those cannons would later become a game-changer for the siege of Boston. But here's the twist. Some historians now wonder if Arnold's hunger for control hinted at the betrayal he'd commit years later. That question still lingers, but the real test was coming. A hill outside Boston would decide the war's fate. Bunker Hill's bloody price. Why did 1,000 British soldiers fall on one hill? By mid-June 1775, the tension in Boston was electric. General Thomas Gage, desperate to break the colonial siege, hatched a plan to seize key heights around the city. But the Patriots got wind of it, again. On June 16th, General Israel Putnam sent Colonel William Prescott with 1,200 militia to fortify Bunker Hill. Prescott, spotting a better position, dug in on Breed's Hill instead, closer to the British and perfect for artillery. Working through the night, they built a redoubt right under the noses of British warships. At dawn, the redcoats spotted it and opened fire, but their cannons couldn't hit the elevated fortifications. General William Howe, fresh off the boat and brimming with confidence, thought his 1,500 grenadiers could sweep the rabble militia aside. He was dead wrong. The colonists held their fire until the British were just 50 paces away, then unleashed a devastating volley. Redcoat lines shattered, light infantry fled, grenadiers stumbled. A second attack fared no better, with bodies piling up in the unmowed fields. By the third assault, the militia were out of ammunition and bayonets. Prescott fought to the last, parrying bayonet thrusts with his ceremonial sword. Dr. Joseph Warren, refusing to lead from the rear, fell in the final moments, a crushing blow to the Patriots. The British took the hill, but paid a brutal price. Over 1,000 men killed or wounded. It was a victory that felt like defeat. The smoke cleared, but the war was just beginning. What came next would shock everyone. A revolution ignited. The Battle of Bunker Hill wasn't just a fight, it was the moment the American Revolution caught fire. The British may have claimed the hill, but losing over 1,000 men to a scrappy militia proved they'd misjudged the colonists' grit. General Clinton called it a dearly bought victory, warning another like it could spell doom. For the Patriots, the battle was a rallying cry. Those who stayed through the chaos emerged tougher, ready to fight on. When George Washington rode into camp on July 2nd, 1775, he found a raw, undisciplined army, but began forging it into something fierce. Meanwhile, the colonists played a masterstroke, rushing eyewitness accounts of British aggression to London and the colonies, swaying hearts and minds. The Second Continental Congress, meeting in Philadelphia, formed the Army of the United Colonies and named Washington its commander, setting the stage for a bigger war. Bunker Hill showed the world the colonists weren't backing down. But here's the question that still hangs in the air. Could one bloody day on a hill really birth a nation? Or was this just the opening act of a struggle that would reshape the world? The rebellion was now a revolution, and history was watching.